Herzlich willkommen
to the webinar Life Hacking and How to Protect Your Company from Cyber Attacks. In order to give you a view on threats, we established the following agenda for you. We will start with facts and figures regarding the current threat levels, and then we will speak about life hacking. Christian Graber from Sunrise will speak about ransomware, why it's evolving and how it is spreading. And Kim Dang from Accenture will speak about managed detection and response, how security monitoring protects against ransomware attacks. During the webinar, you can place your questions via the Q&A, and we will answer them at the end of the webinar. Every week, you can read in the media about cyber attacks that affect organizations from different areas. Customer data is stolen, and the data loss is underestimated, and we hear about millions of attacks and many more. If we look at Switzerland, Switzerland is an attractive country for these threat scenarios and cyber attacks. If we look at the global ranking of the countries which are best protected, Switzerland only ranks 5. On average, 6 million Swiss francs is the cost of a cyber attack in order to eliminate it for SMEs. In the last 3 years, 300% more cyber attacks were reported in Switzerland. The average cost for an SME in order to eliminate an attack, if the anti-IT infrastructure is encrypted, has a cost of 100 million Swiss francs. There are many attacks. They cover DDoS attacks, ransomware, malware, or phishing. If we look at the cybersecurity framework, oftentimes companies cover their area protect with antivirus, firewall, or DDoS protection, but this does not suffice. For adequate safety solutions, and the subject managed detect response should ideally come from a global provider who recognizes the threats and offers an adequate solution. This is the reason why Sunrise partners with Accenture, the leading MDR service provider. So, we will have now the live hacking demo. Hi there, I'm Emil Sturr from Accenture, and today I will give a demo on live hacking. I know that IT security for many people is hard to understand. I thought we look at it and we can illustrate it with a story I brought. For a story, we need the main characters. We have our main actor, who is Mr. Schneider, who works in the human resources of a SME, and normally he is responsible for staffing, administration of salaries. He studied economics and has no technical skills, and is an average staff at a company. The antagonist in our story is a hacker group which calls itself Killnet, and their business model is to attack SMEs, to steal their data, They encrypt later and request ransom. So this is a hacker group, because normally we have an image of a single person as a hacker with a hoodie on. But these hacker attacks have made so much progress. It's no longer performed by a single person, but these are groups or even organizations who have the same structure. Like an SME, there are developers, people who recruit new talent. So the structure is much bigger than formerly. Hence, it's even more important for companies to protect against these attacks. So now let's look at what our hacker wants to achieve. In this small demo, I will show you the hacker sends an email to its victim, Mr. Schneider, which is included in a document with a malicious code. The objective is for Mr. Schneider to open the document. This is called a phishing attack. I'm sure you have heard about it. There are different types of phishing schemes. In this occasion, it works via email, but it can also work via SMS, phone. There are many ways, but a particular type is peer phishing, which means the hacker has learned about Mr. Schneider. He has learned about the company in order to know how a perfect email that Mr. Schneider would answer would look like. But contrary to the most frequent phishing attacks, there can also be not very personal emails. I receive SMS from banks that I don't have access, and I should log in under a certain link, even if I don't have an account at that bank. But this time it's customized for Mr. Schneider. So now we ask ourselves, what does the hacker want to achieve? Normally, hackers have different goals. They might try to steal private data, patented information about salaries, everything that should be protected. But they can also steal credentials. There's also a market in the internet where hackers sell data from companies. There can be easily found from big companies such as SAP. You can buy them online for a small amount of money. Another goal hackers might have is the manipulation of the IT infrastructure. For example, you are an IT service provider who has created a website for a customer or offers programs for salary administration. The hackers can attack these systems so they are no longer available, or they might try to steal the data. And hackers obviously want to expand in the system of a company. Once they have reached the initial effect, they would like to expand in the system in order to affect additional servers in order to continue stealing data or to encrypt them finally. Obviously, it's not that easy. There are technical restrictions which most companies have, such as firewalls, antivirus scanners, email gateways. You can imagine this like a castle. There are firewalls and there are high walls. And what is important for the defense of a company is the training of staff. Staff has to be clear that these type of attacks exist and they have to defend themselves. But let's look at how the hacker is able to infiltrate the company and steal the data. As already mentioned, firewalls are a huge roadblock that protect and block data traffic. What firewalls don't block is the traffic in from the company to the outside, because most of the companies need internet connections. They have to communicate with the external world, and this weak point will be used by the hacker. He will send a document with malicious code, which then establishes a link between the company and the hacker, so he has a connection with the targeted computers and access to the data and the computers of Mr. Schneider. So this is more than enough. Let's have a closer look how it works. I have to interrupt the presentation shortly. And here we are. I brought Mr. Schneider's computer, which you can see here with the diver. And we have the computer of our hacker group, which is a Linux system. Because Linux, you can download it from the internet free of charge. And this operating system is used to perform testing of weak points, but you can also use it for attacks if there's enough criminal energy, and you can recognize it with this dragon. The hacker group has sent the email, and they are waiting for Mr. Schneider to open the email. And they have to do one thing. They have to start a listener, which is a small program that is waiting for Mr. Schneider to log in. This looks complicated, but these are simple commands, and there are also instructions in the internet. If you're interested, you can Google Kali Linux. There are instructions galore which describe how to build an attack. So let's go back to Mr. Schneider now. Let's imagine he comes from his coffee break. He comes a little bit late back to his workstation. And he says he wants to answer a couple of emails, and then it will be time for lunch. He's looking forward to it, so he looks into his email. He sees a new one. It's a person who wants to work at the company. Dear Mr. Schneider, I'm looking for new challenges and found your company. I would like to introduce myself. She has studied computer technology, and Mr. Schneider is happy because he has put an ad that he's looking for a person like her. And you can learn more about me in the enclosed CV. Mr. Schneider wants to look at the resume. It's a normal Word document. He opens it. And what Mr. Schneider doesn't know is that the malicious code is executed and it is too late. In the background, there already was a connection established with the hacker, and he has access. But let's have a look at the Word file. A nice looking woman. It looks normal. For Mr. Schneider, it was not evident that this was an attack. This cliché that phishing emails are full of typos and other things is no longer valid. In the meantime, they have become really professional, and the hackers have learned more too. So let's look how it looks on the hacker side. We see that the session was opened. The hacker has access to Mr. Schneider's PC. The first thing he does is that he wants to see where he is at. He is on a Windows 10 PC. 2 people are logged in. That's interesting. The first thing the hacker wants to do is to see what our user he has attacked right now is doing. He opens a screen share. A browser window will be opened where the hacker can look over the shoulder of the person attacked. The window's opened, and the hacker is seeing in real time what the victim is doing. So he can see the emails the victim is writing, and looking at the data he might steal. I will close this window. And the hacker will now start a keylogger, which is a tool very important for the hacker to steal credentials. A keylogger is writing simultaneously using all keys the user is activating. I will show it to you. The program was started. Everything is going fine. Let's go back to Mr. Schneider. He thinks he's still looking at a resume and that he would like to talk to that person in the company. It works like that. They start the process via a SAP system. He logs in order to start the process, in order to hire that person potentially. He logs in. He logs in, types his password, and the hacker might not recognize completely what his passcode is. But fortunately, they started the keylogger and they can see what Mr. Schneider has typed. I hope you can see the screen. We see the user p.schneider and next a super secure password. And normally the hacker have stolen the initial access data and can expand. But normally in a ransomware attack, we have seen that between the first infection, what I just illustrated, and the encryption of the data, 100 to 120 days might pass. But what the hackers do in that time is that they explore the IT infrastructure, they build backdoors so they can enter and leave the company at ease. This type of things. It could be compared to a person who breaks into your home and during 100 days he comes by at night, he looks in the closet, he sees what valuables you have at home, and 100 days later he takes your stuff and leaves a ransom request at your home. Now that the hacker have the passcodes, they are obviously interested in seeing which files Mr. Schneider has. Perhaps he has documents I'm interested in. They are interested in, and they can look on the hard drive of Mr. Schneider. And most people have their work documents in a work folder, and they want to navigate. So now they look at the user. They know that he's called admin. They go in the document folder and look at what they have, a folder which is called offers. They might be interesting for the hackers because perhaps, let's imagine you are a construction company. Perhaps your competitors wanted to know and look around what you are doing. There's a tender and they want to know which prices they are indicating or what material costs they have. And the hacker looks in the folder which is called offers, and there's another file which is called salaries. Perhaps a competitor wants to work with the people you have in your company and they want to make an offer to them. So the hackers want that list. They say download salary PDF, which is downloaded, and we can look at that file in a moment. Here we have that file. There's one entry. Mr. Hembrook makes 10 euros per hour, and this is what he makes on a monthly basis. Interesting. So the competitor company might make an offer to him, which is attractive. So let's imagine the hackers have downloaded the data they are interested in, and they are preparing their ransomware attack. I will upload a file on the victim's PC, which is called WannaCry, a ransomware which a couple of years ago was well known, and it was largely distributed in Europe. I was standing on the train station in Dresden, and there were some funny images during that time. The ransomware was uploaded. We only have to execute it. I cannot make a typo, otherwise it won't work. So it was executed, and let's have a look at how Mr. Schneider's PC looks. Things are still normal. The ransomware will take time to become effective. We look at a folder, and there are a couple of new files which were not there before. There's a change. We have a WannaCry file and another file. All your important data were encrypted. You no longer have access until they will be decrypted. If you want to decrypt your data, you have to send $300 in bitcoins to that address. So the screen is no longer the one I had, and We see what happened. How can I retrieve my data? How do I pay? So, Mr. Schneider, all data are encrypted. When the software was active, there was a timer. In the first 48 hours, it only cost $300, but when this time is over, it will cost $600. The worst that Mr. Schneider could do is to close his laptop and go to his weekend. Perhaps the issue has solved on Monday, but the Trojan will expand in his network and he should pay. He should inform his IT department about this attack. And this is the end of my short presentation. I go back to the presentation. Let's look what happened. We saw the hacker has sent a phishing email to Mr. Schneider, and there was a document that contained malware.
And the hackers used a keylogger to steal the access codes for Mr. Schneider. So we did not look at, because of lack of time, at the other factors. Now the hacker is going to spread into the company. He's going to look at whatever fine, interesting information he can find there. We've seen how he's stolen data, and then he stole the ransomware. And with this, he has basically bricked the computer of Mr. Schneider. So this was, of course, kind of an extreme scenario. It's not that easy, that simple to penetrate the company. There's very often their corporate security measures very high. But of course, if a company has a bad defense against these type of attacks, then it can be that easy to penetrate them. So now comes the question, how do we avoid ending up in this situation as Mr. Schneider? And here again, I would like to give back to my colleagues. Thank you very much for your attention. Yes, thank you, Emil Starr, for this presentation. Now we are going to look at what does this mean for the concerned organization. We've seen the situation on the screen. There we go. So, this is now the moment where a number of questions go through your head. Why me? Why we? Why us? Why are they attacking us? We're completely uninteresting. What happened? Are the data just encrypted as happened, or are the data already stolen? What does this mean for my organization? And how could this happen despite the fact that we have spent so much money in security and my IT has always said, yeah, everything's fine. We got everything under control. Our partners in IT partners always said that they would be vouching for security. Do we have an insurance for that? What is the insurance going to pay for? And if the hacker was really good, maybe, of course, maybe he has already hacked the insurance. They said, who has a cyber insurance? They said, okay, this client is going to paying quickly because he's got an insurance. So they're going to attack the insured clients first. But if everything has been encrypted, can you actually get it back? And how fast can you get it back into your normal life? All these questions is what the attacker wants you to ask yourself. So from the point of view of the attacker, if we have the feeling we are in a sector that is well defended, statistics show clearly you attack every sector. Any organization is a target. The motivation is the money, and let's not forget the lone wolf hacker. Sometimes you have state-controlled actors, companies that are organized crime, for instance. When the mafias in the world, about 10 years ago, they did their strategic planning, some of them said, yes, it is extremely interesting to invest in IT security. Let's not forget, on the other side, they do the same as we, they digitize, they automatize, they use the artificial intelligence, and they hire experts, which they pay very well, and so they're very talented and very innovative. And the idea that it's a human that is attacking you is ludicrous. It's not a funny. Yes, first of all, there's going to be scripts that are going to scan the internet to see where the fault lines are, and every time each leak is an interesting, each breach is an interesting target. On the side of the attackers, there's also a specialization. These are organizations, they have managers, they have engineering teams that develop the new modes, vectors of attack. But on the other side, of course, the protection is always improved. The modes are deeper, the walls are higher. Also, if we have the test engineers, because, of course, they need to check that if these attack scripts work. They have crypto experts. They have the classical hackers, they have system admins. And when it comes to negotiating, it's other people doing it. It's usually men in the middle. They have no idea of IT, but they are negotiation specialists, and they've done it numerous times. And usually it's only going to happen once in your life, or not at all. But these organizations, they're used to doing this, and they work in networks. In other words, ransomware is an entire industry, and it's a growing industry. Recently, there has been a study that shows it's a $1 billion market, and it's going to be a growing market in the future. We need to take this into account and try to think what this means for us. Now you ask yourself, okay, I don't know that many companies that have been attacked. Of course you don't know, because nobody wants to, of course, make it known that it had been hacked. There's some examples luckily, that explain what happened to you. There was a German article in the NZZ, in the Neue Zürcher Zeitung. You'll find the link in the presentation. The Neue Zürcher Zeitung, the new Zurich newspaper, was attacked for about a year ago. And in this very interesting long article, they explain what the consequences were. And once you read this, try to think, okay, this was only a medium severe attack. For this not to happen to you, we would like to know what you could do on top of that, on top of your IT security and protection, the protection that you have. Everyone's got security, but maybe you need more than that. And for this, Kilam from Accenture is going to tell you more about this. Hello. Let's see what happens in the company once the attack has been taken out. The key question is how we can protect yourself and how you can identify the attack before it escalates and causes severe damage. It is very interesting to look at what the possibilities for that are. I'm trying to keep it as simple. At the end of the day, we have two components. First of all, it's the technical aspect, the tool with which we analyze the logs. The aim is the security information and defense management. And the second component, the security information and event management and security operations of the SOC. And all this works together with the MDR. So we need the technology, we need the humans. And for any company, there's the key question as a new security baseline. There is the security monitoring. So without monitoring, you can't do without, and you need to ask yourself the question, are we going to do the security monitoring ourselves? Are we hiring a team that is going to be sitting in front of the screens and going to monitor the system? Or should we buy this as a managed service? If we look at the market situation, the trend is to buy this as a managed service from a third party, because the own setup of a security monitoring is extremely cost extensive, because the human component is the biggest expense part. So you need to have a 24/7 team. So you need at least 5 or 6 security experts that will, at the actual market situation, are going to be scarce talents. So you will have trouble hiring them. So security experts are extremely expensive, and they're very hard to hire and even to keep in your company. So at the end of the day, most companies, they decide, okay, which security provider they are going to choose from. Why is it such a big end service, and why does it play such an important role between Samaris and Accenture? Because our service supports you exactly at that point to avoid a worsening of a ransomware attack. I think the key aspect of a security monitoring, you will find it with many security providers, but what really defines a very good service is that we can bring you very quickly an added value, because we can implement you a service within 8 weeks. This plays an important role because we've seen with many customers that have been attacked that had no security monitoring. They now need one in order to prevent a new book, because when you've been attacked once, you can be attacked again, and the attackers know exactly what your weak points are, and that you don't have necessarily all the time to close your to weakening points, because they're going to attack again, because they know that very often the company is going to forget or not take the time to plug the leaks, the holes. Is it also, the other question is very important, is there an automatized solution? Automatized solutions play a role when you as a company don't want to be active yourself, and when the resolution of problems can be done automatically, and that means extremely fast turnaround time. So you need to even less interact with the service provider, and you have the guarantee that the attacks will be very quickly taken into account. So very often they say, well, we call you and we're sending you an email and you need to do all the work. That can be taken over by the automatic systems. Experts play a very important role on the technical and human resources aspects, and our SOC analysts, they're extremely well trained, because all our SOC analysts are trained individually. And we do not take any beginners. We're not going to invest any newbies or rookies in SOC in your companies. Everyone is extremely highly trained and highly qualified. Why does this play a role? Because the better the human people in the system, the faster the attacks are recognized, and the clearer are the instructions and the response mechanisms behind it. So you will profit enormously from that if the person that we are going to hire for the SOC is a very high qualified. It also plays a role in the fact that there's not many fluctuations. If the SOC co-workers, you change the providers all the time, the problem is that you're going to have to repeat every time the explanation how your infrastructure works, and of course that takes lots of time and lots of energy on your side, which means that is exactly the opposite from what you expect as a managed service on your side. So, of course, data protection is a big, important part, particularly when you're in a security monitoring, when you give your log data to a third party, particularly when you have a management service. And here we are GDPR and GPD compliant, and that is absolutely important for us, because we, of course, as Accenture, we have customers around the entire world, multinational customers, and therefore we need to have the confidence of these people so that we follow these guidelines and that they can profit from it too. The most important, because I know that in the security field the cost issue is very important, we have a very transparent and pricing system. You only pay the platforms that we adopt. You don't pay for a higher log volume, and you don't pay more for storage and of log data, of log retention. You don't pay for more contact points with our analyst. Here really the devil is in the details, and really look specifically at our offers, what's included in the pricing, because very often I had customers who said, we bought a service, but in the end, with all the options, the pricing basically doubled. But that should be included standard. So it's better to really look at the offer and buy a high qualitative pricing instead of having to always add on new costs and like that. If you look at the security monitoring, and if you want to understand the account, there's 4 steps which you need to take into account to properly understand it. Which each security monitoring, the first point is that the logs which you have in your company, you collect them, and that we encrypt them, and then encrypted sent to and compressed to the service provider. That's usually done via a log collector, and our solution is here that we basically use a virtual machine from you where we install a ISO image. There is no hardware installation. You have no investment. You don't need to maintain anything. It's a very simple modem here. We have the log collection platform, which just in software that take the logs from your company, and then in the second step transmits to us. So that's the technical component where we elaborate use cases, different scenario via the logs in order to understand what in the system actually happens. A typical example here is that we see typical types of attack, like for instance brute force attacks. So in a known scenario, we could very quickly automatically recognize that there is an attack taking place. And then the next step is that this attack could then be passed on to a human resource that can validate and raise the defenses. We, as Accenture, we have a huge library of use cases from which we learn, but it's not the volume of use cases that plays a role. It's more the type of experts that actually base themselves on the use cases, because on the end of the day, use cases, they are very quickly obsolete because the situations change over time. So the more actual the use cases are, the more people work on these use cases, then the higher is your protection level. So you always need to make sure that how many people work on the use cases rather than on the volume of the library of use cases that are provided to you. I also mentioned we have the human team, the Security Operations Center co-workers, who focus on the fact that this mechanically promoted events, that they validate them. So very often they're going to be confronted with the term false positive. What can often happen is that when newbies or people less qualified looked at the events, and these wrongly qualify them, and then spend very much time, the fact, running behind these events, and in order to identify it's really an attack. The better trained, the better experienced the co-workers, the less false positives we have, and the faster we can act for the service. And this plays a huge role because you, as of course client of a managed service, want to ensure that the quality is there, and of course, and that quality you can measure it of how low the false positive rates or these wrong alarms is good. So our co-workers work 24/7. They are on site 24/7 on the systems. They look at the events happening in real time, and they're always available for you. So there is no by net social networks, internet, and that is also something with us that you do this regularly. It is important that we know and that you know how it's going on in your system. And the last point, when the security co-workers, they have recognized an event, they will categorize it. It can be a phone call in this critical moment, or in less critical moments. It can just an email sign, which you then answer. Just to give you an example how wide the scope for us as security provider is, we have globally, because we have been running this service for quite long, also on a global level, from 24 hours, we have 32 billion log rolls. 64,000 potential incidents are created. So these log rolls, they are compared, run through the sieve of the use cases, to recognize patterns. And out of these 64,000, we have 8,000 validated incidents. So the higher the false positive rate is, the higher will be the number of validated incidents, and then we're going to lose lots of time to run after these false positives. The better the quality, the less validated incidents we have, and the really critical incidents where we need to call you, where we need to work together with you, they're extremely rare. So in the most cases, usually you need then to work with us in order to attack to the situation and implement the specific measures. I've given some quick example for detection timeline here, just briefly, just so that you get an idea how an attack could look like. So we are time 0, who has started an attack with a unknown vulnerability for log4j, for instance, and within 5 minutes the logs are analyzed, and within the logs we recognize that here, on the basis of a use case, there is an peculiar behavior. So we see some points in the system there is a behavior that is not normal and that could indicate an attack. Next step, then we have the human worker expert who is going to look at this. We are at 7 minutes, and then he's going to validate it if it's really an attack or not, and then leads on future analysis. So the people, the components, at the end of the day, they look at different points in the system and they try to establish a correlation in order to define or identify, is this an attack and how does the attack take place? So after 10 minutes, we've contacted you and we talk with you to see what are going to be the next steps. What is great is we always have the possibility to have an automatic response. So if you will discuss that with us on the position option, how to have automatic response system, for instance, to isolate a server or take a server offline or cut the accesses from a certain user, then we can do this automatically, and you can agree this with us, and we can do this without even waiting for you, already launch a certain number of counter responses and already dam in and so on. So without monitoring service, you will have a problem because you'll not be able to identify and counter an attack within 15 minutes. You're completely blind in the situation. That's why you need the risk monitoring. We always say these are co-workers, but it's your safety team, your security team. There's different roles, which I don't want to go into detail, but at the end of the day, you need to think about that. You have a team that is 24/7 ready for you. You have a service delivery lead who is compatible for you in your language, like German, during your office hours, that can lead you and help you and support you in the service delivery. And we have an engineering team that going to ensure that that the infrastructure with you is not static but always dynamic and always a text. So the dashboards are extremely important because you also need an interface with you on top of the normal phone call. You also have the possibility that is quite interesting for the structure in your company. According to the type or the role, the position in the company, to provide information. So if we have a CISO, that he will not necessarily see the same information with the person who ensures to resolve the security issues, or someone in management who only going to see high level figures, what happened and how quickly they were resolved. So for what we are very proud of is our service onboarding. At the end of the day, the time to value, as we call them, is 4 to 8 weeks. So very quickly you have a very high quality service that helps you to close these holes, plug these holes in your system, the response part. What is important is that we do a proper kickoff where we give you a clear ideas which procedures you need to implement. At the end of the day, it is very important to distinguish. You're going to see different offers on the market for security monitoring, but you need to understand that you need to think very clearly on what provider you're going to choose and what level of quality you're going to buy. Why are we doing this differently? Why do we say that you should consider us for your security? Because we are basically an extension of your team. You have access to us. We are not just a resource pool where you just take a ticket and wait for us to be ready. No, you have someone you can talk with 24/7, people who know your IT structures, who don't change every day. We have the expertise. We at Accenture, we work globally, and we have customers internationally, which we work with at international levels. So we know that when you have a 5 years contract with us, that we as in 5 years will still be here, which is not necessarily the case with smaller SMEs that function as a startup, and then suddenly 5 years down the line will not even be there, like use cases that will be, or use case refresh that will, because 5 years. We are not a standard SIEM. We are a company that we are in the SIEM and the SOC, and a high quality, very quick turnaround. Our service will always keep the quality in order to develop further, and the most important is, of course, the pricing is completely transparent. You receive one package in which you have state-of-the-art security monitoring without any extra cost, and that is a very important message, because that is not the case with very many other competitors that change their pricing structure, which can create big problems with you. In this sense, I would like to give the microphone back to my colleagues. And thank you, Kim. Yes, sir. Now we have a question and answers question. Don't hesitate to type in your question in the Q&A box, and we'll be happy to answer them. Okay. The first question on the screen. We have a question on the hacker example. What type of security was installed on Mr. Steiner's notebook? Was there a firewall? If there was a firewall, how would the ransomware have been identified, despite the fact that Mr. Steiner clicked on the link? Yes, this was very well presented. On the notebook, there was a firewall installed, but at the end of the day, the firewall is not a silver bullet for security. The firewall will only analyze the incoming and outgoing traffic, but it's not going to analyze all the other behaviors on the laptop and on your system. It's not going to be able to identify them. The firewall in certain cases will not be useful because if it will maybe identify the traffic, but will not be able to help you to understand what is going on in the service, particularly how the attacker, through an escalation of privileges on the system, moving around the system, and can also damage outside of the traffic. So even with the modern software which you have on your system, you will not be able to stop that, and in many cases you won't even notice it. Now the next question. We have an existing IT provider. What would be the advantages of this new solutions? Well, at the end of the day, we have a collaboration with all the providers. So whatever the actual providers you have for ER software, for instance, or for firewall, or for other IT service providers, we are coexisting, because we, as SMR monitoring, we are above the IT infrastructure, and we take all the information that we can see. If suddenly you say in specific cases you need to contact not us but the providers, then we're going to contact the provider directly, who is going to be in charge of resolving the issue. Very good, thank you. And the next question is, how can we protect ourselves against online phishing, particularly when these links seem safe, and sometimes they're even connected, something like Cloudflare, for instance? I think the easiest solution is to check who is sending it. Is it someone from the company with a corporate email address? In this case, I would be very cautious not to click on the link. Very often I think that we should not even open these mails. I said, look at who is sending this. is the signature correct? And particularly with phishing, especially if there is this kind of FOMO, that is usually the indicator. When you're being pressured to act really quickly, that is a warning signal. There is no silver bullet to recognize phishing, but you need to keep your clear head, because that is going to help you in many cases. If there are promises made, or if suddenly you say you need to act quick and not wait and not lose time and do it now, that is a red flag. This is a good example that the implied question, how can I protect myself? The protection only goes a certain level, and then the attack has nevertheless taken cake. The central point is, when you've been attacked, is how quickly can I identify the attack, because, as we say, we have a certain time where we can still react before the damage becomes really severe. And the human actor will always be the weakest point, and the attackers are going to use this weakest point. We all know that on the mobile phones we click faster than on a computer, which you shouldn't do it. And once the attack is taking place, then we should, as fast as possible, identify this attack. And if you look at other offers of the competition, ask the question, how long does it take from the moment where the monitoring service provider recognizes the problem before that he calls you? So the question of agility. And the last question, the logs from which devices are going to support it. Technically, it is in the interest of the security monitoring is that we have as wide possible logs. At the end of the day, we're going to look at the scoping list, which devices you have in your systems, but all standard systems are going to be monitored, and I would advise that you include them: firewalls, inclusion detection system, prevention systems, proxies, servers, endpoints. All these points are valid attack points and points where you can be severely, there can be severe damages. So these are the ones we monitor, but in detail we define the scope clear with each customer. But this is a standard list of devices we need to monitor. Thank you for your inputs. Thank you very much for having taken the time to log in. I closed this webinar asking you if you could, via the contact points which we're showing you on screen, that you can call us at any time. The presentation will be sent to you shortly via email. You also will find a link where you can directly go to our website to get more information about our service offering. And please note our next events in the area of Zurich and the area of Lausanne on the time managed detection response. We wish you a very nice weekend. Thanks God it's Friday, and see you very soon.